Okay, we are live. So today we have KJ here with us. So for all of you who are joining us, all of you here mostly on LinkedIn, if you are live, please comment live below. And we will like to say hi to you. And please comment so that we know who you are, and we'll love to say hi to you as well. Okay, and yeah, so if you're live, please comment live below, and we'll love to say hi to you. And today we have KJ Wong here with us, all the way from Melbourne. And KJ empowers sales teams to deliver differentiating value. And KJ is also the founder of Awake by 5 a.m. So mostly you are awake by 5 a.m., KJ. So besides my introduction, KJ, please share with my audience a bit about yourself.
Sure thing. So I started out as a neuroscientist when I began, and straight after uni, and I started a biotech business with my supervisor at the time, and so it was called New Body, and then from there I built up the business for my boss. He's still he's a researcher, and so he had no time for the business, so it was all up to me. And from there, I actually learned a lot about business, what not to do. I was only like really young, like 19, and and so there's a lot of problems. But creating a full functioning lab and run it as a business is a biotech company, so it was really tough, growing this business. So I learned a lot of what not to do. And then from there, I decided that after reading Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I'm not sure whether your audience has read that book before. It literally changed my life because it says that if you really want to learn about life skills, really want to be good at, and be happy about yourself, you need to be a sales rep. I kind of go, oh, geez, building this business is fun, but being customer fronting is even better. So I packed all my stuff. I quit my job. My boss cried, and I moved from Adelaide to Sydney and start from scratch. And my dad didn't speak to me for 2 weeks because he said I'm crazy, and that's how I started my sales journey. Through that, I was the youngest sales manager ever it's a global company called Barrett, ever got promoted in this company as a sales manager. So I had a team of, at the time, 6, and I eventually built it up to about 9 as a sales manager, because we have also like the application specialist as well. And then from Sydney, we had some family tragedy, and so I decided to move to Melbourne with my wife, and whereby I became, again, sales manager for a completely different company. And there I was given a very tough task because the company was going backwards in sales and it was dying. And the people, it's like a rotating door, revolving door of sales rep. They just start and quit prior to me starting. And so they seriously needed help. And so they selected me, which is great. And I turned that business around within the first 12 months to about a 14% growth the following year in the 12 months I was there. And so the boss was like really shocked that we did a more than 20% swing from negative 10% growth, negative growth, to like 14% positive growth, which is a really good thing. And so I launched many products to do that, train all my reps. Literally, I was given literally the whole company to redo the whole lot. The sales process, the CRM, everything was new. I implemented the iPad, how to use iPad for selling, retrained the reps because they had no sales skill. And lucky for me, I was a scientist initially, so I know the product inside out, even though I'm, like they're a different brand. And so I had to be given the task to coach and train my team on the product side as well. So yeah, all in all, it was hard work, but we did extremely well. And eventually, I went into the forensic. So from life science to the forensic. So that is where it's really exciting. I love it. And eventually, after a few years of that, I think I more than tripled that business when I was doing that forensic work. And then eventually I got a bit bored and I decided, oh, what am I going to do in my life? So I quit my job without job. I quit that job without going to another job, which is crazy, right? Don't do that. And decided to start my business awake by 5 a.m. because I asked my wife, geez, what the hell do I do now? And my wife goes, well, there's only one thing you're good at, selling. There's nothing else you're good at. I was going, yeah, that's true. And so I decided to go ahead with Awake by 5 a.m. And since then, that was 3 years ago. And since then, I've been training people from entrepreneurship, like startups, all the way up to like a middle-sized business in all the industry that I've never been exposed to. So I'm so grateful because like now I'm in SaaS, in IT, in marketing, SEOs, website, Kanban, Agile. I've never even heard of some of these words before, but I was training their coach. I was training their sales rep, and so I'm extremely happy, and in a long-winded way, this is a bit about my story, and here I am today talking to Bob and you guys.
Thanks for your story, Jay. It really covered all from your beginnings to what you currently do, and also a lot of your sales experience, which I can see a lot of times is technical sales experience, and also what we are going to talk about today, which is consultative sales, which will be very interesting to our audience. So before we move on, thanks so much. Let's just say hi from our audience around the world. So we have Nikki from Kuala Lumpur. So Nikki says
Cool.
hi. So can you see that? Okay,
Yes.
we have Nikki. We have Linda from Hong Kong. And
Hong Kong,
then
yeah.
we have Andrew Cox from
Oh,
Seattle. I'm not
Seattle.
sure if you've been
Wow,
to Seattle, KJ.
not yet. Not
Yeah,
yet.
and then we have a lot of people from Singapore. We have
I know
Rainy from
Rainy Rainmaker.
Singapore.
I know her.
Okay, Rainy Rainmaker is here. Sanny Lim from Singapore as
Sunny.
well. We have quite a number of people from Singapore.
Yeah,
Irene
yeah.
Chin, who is a career coach in Yishun, if I
Cool.
remember. And Irene is from Singapore. Rainy says, Rainy says good morning. Chris
It's
Chuang,
the
who is in sales as
afternoon for
well.
us.
So Chris,
KL.
yeah,
I was from I
Chris
was
Chuang
from
is from
Malaysia, by
KL.
the way. Malaysian. Woo. That's
Yes,
fantastic.
KJ is from Malaysia. And we have a few other to say hi just before we move on. Simon Wong, who is one
Not
of
in
the leaders
KL.
in the retail industry in Malaysia.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
Jasmine, also from Malaysia. And Rizal from
Malaysia.
Malaysia as well. So, okay, Malaysia is leading.
Awesome. There's a lot of
Venus
Malaysians.
from
Yay.
KL.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so back to Singapore. So we have Calvin from Singapore, Calvin Fu from Singapore, Lily from Singapore, and that's all. So if you are here, we'd love for you to say hi. And apologies for the lateness. I know we started a bit late today. It's because we had to sort out some technical issues, and I'm still sorting it out. So I'm going to do a test now, and there might be a bit of lag. So I just want to share because KJ has some slides to share. So I just want to try this out. So if we go berserk or we lag, so just bear with us. So I'm going to try this out to see if we can get KJ's some of his slides on the live. So this is live. So there's a lot of problems. So I just want to see if we could get some of his slides on the screen. So
Oh, got kicked out.
KJ, are you still there?
Yep, I'm
Okay,
still
hold
there.
on,
I can still
hold
hear
on.
you.
This you're still here? Okay, okay. So trying something out. I'm trying to share your slides through the Microsoft Edge. So let me try it
We
again.
don't we don't need the slide if it is too difficult. I can still work with everyone.
Okay. Okay. Okay, I think you might see your slides now.
Not yet.
Okay. I think a little bit of your speed, KJ.
Yep, it is starting to
Yeah, this
load.
is
It's
so
starting
love.
to
This
load.
is us troubleshooting. And
Can everyone see it? It's starting to appear on my screen. I got. Is that the first page? I think it is the first page.
you can see, guys, it's
It's okay without it. I'm cool with it.
okay. Can you see it now? Okay, I think we can't do it. Okay, so no worries then. We lost the
That's okay.
stream.
That is good.
Oh, and trial
Um,
and error. Okay, KJ.
no,
So
that's cool.
let us start with the first question.
Yep.
So I think one of the things we like to tackle is definitions. And before we talk about sales, I think the first thing we want to talk about, what does selling mean?
That's right. So it's a definition that a lot of people are kind of like afraid of. Some people hate them, and and
Mm,
and it shouldn't
mm,
be, because the actual real definition of selling is exchange of one thing for another thing that is of value to all parties.
mm,
Now, if you actually write that
mm.
definition down, I don't really understand why anyone would actually hate that, of value to
Okay.
everyone, right? Because like it is
Mm,
beneficial to, it's mutually beneficial. That's why there's an exchange of something. And you also notice that when it
mm,
comes to selling, I never mentioned money at any time. Like in that definition, money, there's no exchange of money. Money is just one of the things. But selling can
mm,
involve many things, like in-kind stuff, being kind,
mm,
and things like just selling yourself as a person. And I reckon like a
mm,
lot of people kind of miss that. And I feel sad that people hate salespeople, because the majority of salespeople are good at selling. And when they're good at selling, they're
mm,
actually helping their customers, as opposed to the current problem that we have, that people believe that salespeople are all kind of like manipulative, aggressive people, which is not true. Most of them that
mm,
I know of are very helpful, useful people for organization and everyone else. So that
mm,
is really the true meaning of selling to me.
mm. So selling sometimes involves money, sometimes, but
Yeah,
most of the
yeah,
time it's exchanging value. So it can be in any form, right? It can be
yeah,
in the
yes, of
form
course.
of different types of value, can be a form of arrangement, can be anything, right? And
That's
also,
correct.
I think um, selling is also not selling. I think one of the challenges people have is selling things to people who don't need it, right? But in your definition of selling, it's selling to people who are ready for that exchange. Am I right?
Yes, because when you are a sales rep, if you see yourself as sales rep or someone who's selling, you don't have to be a title
Mm,
sales rep. You're helping
mm,
someone with their problems. Those people
mm,
who do the right thing when they're selling,
mm,
especially B2B, where there's an actual
mm,
sales call, where there's actual consultation involved. There's a lot of
mm,
problem solving involved here, and that is part of selling. Anyone who says that they don't sell is rubbish. They're selling. You're either selling themselves or they're selling a product, but you're usually doing both. You're selling yourself that you can be trusted, and you're persuading your
mm,
customer that you can be, someone that they can work with. And the other one is, of course, the solution to their problem, that you're trying to persuade them, hey, I have the solution. Here is the solution to the problems that you have. So that
mm,
is really the true definition of selling.
mm. I see. Yeah, that's good. So no matter who you are doing any a form of selling, whether it's selling for yourself or selling something, and also it's also your function sort of like a medium, like someone in between, where you bring two people who would benefit from each other together. So it's mostly a lot of times a win-win. And
Consult.
since this is live,
Yes, that's right.
yeah,
Yes, yes, go on.
yeah, this is live. Actually, there are some feedback from the audience. So, so that's why I love doing these
Good.
lives. It's very
Awesome.
unpredictable, and you get like
Great.
a lot of things from the audience. So just to say hi to some more people, Laraj from Malaysia and Raida from Malaysia as well. So Sunny says to match what the buyer is looking for.
That's
And
right.
then this is Calvin Fu. He says sales is not trying to get a decision, preferably a yes, but sometimes no is a good answer. This is his thoughts.
A
Thanks for sharing,
long no
Calvin.
maybe will
So,
kill you.
can't see his.
So I don't understand what that
Yeah,
means,
and
but
then
okay,
yeah.
that's
He's
a
just
hard.
saying no is good as well. He's just saying that. As well says hi. So that is the definition of selling. I think that's really important. So I think one of the challenges that most people have when it comes to selling is they are afraid most of the time, or they are how to say, they are unwilling to sell. A lot of entrepreneurs I work with, they have a challenge of opening up, sharing with people what they do. I had one client who he said, I always have chit chats with people for hours, have beers, have coffee, and I am not comfortable sharing that they should buy from me. So my next question would be, what are the right approach or the right mindsets we should have to actually do sales?
For sure. I mean, like, it is quite normal for people to be afraid to persuade someone else, especially when it comes to a transaction, potential transaction of money. Yeah, and that's
Mm,
fine. Like, at the end of the day, what we're trying to achieve here is to help your customers, right? I mean, like, I've not, unless you
mm,
have, Bob. Have you heard of a company exists not to help anyone? I haven't. That every company exists to help someone else, right, or some other
mm,
things, right? And so the intent is
mm,
correct. Or the existing company, what gives them value is to deliver value to other company, right? That to help them. And so as a person, as a sales rep, being afraid to persuade or for people to buy, I think we are seeing it in a wrong angle. In a wrong angle when you're afraid. Like, the right angle is you think that you're trying to sell to your client in terms of like forcing a product upon your client. But in any sales call, in any conversation, it's not about that at all. It's about understanding your customer's requirement. It's about
mm,
understanding the customer's need and challenges. If we actually, when they're in front of anyone, if our mindset is around wanting to understand who you're talking to, what are their challenges, why is it a challenge, and there's several other things, like things that I really like to know about the client is why they do what they do. There's a reason why they're there, right? And
mm,
what are the goals, what they're trying to achieve in this company or themselves, whether it's professionally or personally. And of course the actual meat of the problem, which is like the problem that the company has that you're trying to solve, and that should be the essence or the main part of the conversation with your customers. However, if your main part of the conversation when you turn up is literally throwing a brochure at the client saying that these are our products, these are the features of that, if you begin with that, there is a huge probability that you miss the point, because the client will kind
mm,
of go, well, I don't need that. You are kind of, I don't want to know that. And that's probably the reason why people hate salespeople, because it is well justified. There seems to be people pushing products that they don't need, as opposed to really wanting to know, the customers genuinely wanting to know. And so the mindset that we really need to set ourselves, the very first thing, if you're gonna actually want to have a sales career or want to sell to anyone, the first thing that you need to think about is how genuine are you interested in your customer. If you are one of those
mm,
people who really doesn't give a damn about anyone around you, I don't think sales is really good for you. It's not a good career for you at all. Like, salespeople cares for the people that they engage with. And on LinkedIn, they talk a lot about building relationship, engaging with the client and long term, all this stuff. But you know what? That requires a lot of care at the end of the day, right? I mean, like, if you don't care and the customer knows, how are you going to build a long term relationship? So, caring, you need to demonstrate as a mindset when you approach a client. You got to be interested in them, and you have to know your client's needs. You have to come into a conversation starting with understanding them, as opposed to shoving a brochure in front of their face and hope for the best that one of those things is something that they like, right? So that will be very difficult to do the second time. But the first, if you are planning to understand your client first, it is always the safest route to go with.
Yeah, I love that. So the right mindset is to ask yourself if you genuinely care for your prospect or your client. So that's very good. So if you don't care, that means you're not selling. You're trying just to shove a brochure up for someone. So that's a very good point. And thanks for your answer, KJ. So for the audience right here, I know there are a lot of questions coming in. But I care
Let's do it.
what you think, because we are here and you're live with us. Thanks for spending your afternoon, morning, or night with us. So if you have any questions when it comes to sales for KJ, please comment them below. And we already have a number of questions and they have come in live, KJ. They didn't come before the live, but we already have some questions, maybe some opinions as well. So KJ, maybe you can give your thoughts on some of the questions. So number one, we have Linda all the way from Hong Kong. Okay, she asked a question which is very interesting, but just to love to know your take on this, KJ. So Linda asks, how does honesty play in selling?
I can answer that. 100%. Not 99, 100%. If you have if your characteristics doesn't allow you to be honest with your client and your integrity, generally, you have to assess yourself as a person, right? I'm not going to assess you guys. If you can't be 100% honest with your client and say the right thing because it is the correct thing to say, I think in the world of selling, it's going to be very challenging for you to build that trust that you need with your client. I'm very honest with a client. However, at the same time, as part of your skill as a sales skill, you know how to deliver the message as well. So what we learned in terms of sales experience, it's not about lying, it's about delivering it in a way that the customer understand why things happen the way they do. There are many occasions in my career where things are not going well, not sales. I'm talking about like equipment breaking down, or orders are very late, or you found out that the guy who's supposed to fix this is on leave for like 20 days, or the machine has flaws in it. You have to be very honest with your client, but deliver in such a way that it doesn't damage yourself, doesn't damage the company, and still at the interest of the customer, trying to solve the problems. Because if you couldn't be honest with the client and always lie, there will be a point in time that you're going to get caught off guard. And that's very dangerous, because there's always a saying in selling, right? Like, it takes years to build the relationship, but 1 second to break that. So if you have the urge to lie because you're scared and you don't have the courage, you know what? This is not for you. If you have the courage, you have to think about, okay, how do I communicate the bad news to the client? What can I do to help my client still to deliver what I need to deliver, but being upfront and communicate the client from the very beginning of some of the limitation, especially when you're selling a product, a product that it meets 95%, but that 5% that I couldn't meet, please make sure the client is aware of that and you're very upfront with them about that, And then if the client do try to attempt to do that, well, they're very high. They already understood that 5% probability, they're entering it, whereby they're already being told that that's not possible to do that with this product. So honesty is 100%. It relates to your integrity as a person.
Yes, especially on LinkedIn and B2B sales, we are not car salesmen where we only sell you one car and leave you. Most B2B sales are long-term, year-on-year, multiple year relationships. So that's what you want. You want to be honest. You want to build that relationship, build that trust, so that you can do business for many, many years to come. You talk about partners, you talk about business clients. So you want to have a very long relationship. So thanks, KJ. I think that's 100%, not 99%, not 90%, 100%. It's very important.
Yes.
Okay, so keep your coming in. So please comment your questions below. We already have a few questions, but for those who have just joined us, you can also comment your questions below. So the next question comes from KL in Malaysia. So Jack actually sells, I believe he sells printing equipment. So Jack works for different companies and sells printing solutions. So Jack asks, how do you know there is a need of buying, or else he is afraid that he's pushing something people don't want?
Okay, so this is where
Yeah.
the system, there are many systems that people uses. Uh, the core behind understanding whether there's a need for your product. That's what you're trying to ask, I think. How do I know whether the customer needs me or my product? The only way you can do that is to ask questions, not asking, oh, do you need the product? That's stupid. Like, you ask what are some of the challenges based on the scope around what your product serve, right? What your service do. You need, as part of your sales call, you need to really spend the time to ask questions about the customer. Like, you can't make assumption. Great salespeople makes no assumption. They may make the assumption about their target market in the marketing level, the marketing department, all that, and trying to get the right persona and all that. And then you have a target market that you approach. Yeah, I get all that. There's a lot of assumption being made. But when you're actually talking to the customer right in front of your face right now, you cannot make a single assumption other than trying to understand what is this customer's requirements, like in terms of need, challenges, some of the gaps, what they're trying to achieve. You got to ask those questions, and you have to have the courage to ask those questions. Otherwise, you're going to be making assumption, and that's why they feel that you're pushing something people don't want. You're pushing something people don't want is because you have no understanding what they want. You just literally throw them a brochure. If this is what you do as a sales rep, if I'm your boss, I don't need you. I can just make a brochure and just email it to my client and hope for the best that they will read it. But if you are a sales rep as a conduit, you are the middle part, the middle person between the company and your client. Your job is really to understand their gaps, their needs, their challenges, and then you go from there. You can't go anywhere else. You have to understand that, and then you go forth. I know that there are potentially a lot of coaches here as well, a solopreneur. When you're talking to your client, it's the same thing. You can't recommend drugs without really, if you're a doctor, can you imagine a doctor, you come in, you go, oh yeah, your face looks red, here's a cream, you don't even know exactly what the problem is. That's crazy, like, you don't do that. Salespeople, the great one, works really hard to understand the individual customers they speak to, not making assumption at all. And that is how you know whether they need what they're gonna buy, what are their needs. Because like if you actually understand their requirements, things like that, then you can start shaping your product in terms of the way you deliver the features and benefit in such a way it actually fits beautifully onto solving those problems that you extracted from the client. And that is how you need to think when it comes to engaging with your client. And that's the mindset that you need to get into. I hope that helps.
Yes, 100%. Asking the right questions, and I like the word, don't make assumptions. Don't make any assumptions. It's very important to observe, to actively listen. I think that's one of the things that you share with me. Actively listen to your client's needs instead of making assumptions that they need this or they have this problem, etc. So, KJ, what can you share with me? What do you mean by active listening as well?
I'm glad you asked that. There is many different type. There's a bandwidth of going from hearing someone all the way to active listening. Yeah. And I think a lot of people try to sit in the middle somewhere. So you got hearing, okay? Hearing, you just hear someone. And then the other one is you're listening to someone. And then the last one being active listening to someone. So I'm gonna break it down for you guys so that people have a definition across all three. When you hear someone, you only hear noise. That's it. There is no reason, there's no understanding, but you hear it. So when someone talks to you, even though you're not switched on, to what they're saying. It happens to all of us actually when your wife or your husband talk to you or your kids, when you're busy, you just hear the noise, but you're actually not registering. So that's hearing, right? That the lowest level of kind of like something hitting your eardrums and you're just not registering. So that's the lowest end, right? And then you come into something called listening. Listening where you actually start to turn your body towards someone and you actually stay quiet and really in your head, it's like a flywheel. You're registering every sentence, every kind of word that comes out of the person's mouth, and you're trying to understand, okay, what is exactly is the problem, or what you're trying to say to me, right? What you're trying to say to me. And so it's a bit more active than hearing. And then the last one, active listening. Now, most people that I've trained so far, like in terms of when I test them on their ability to active listen, most of them couldn't do it because active listening, you have to understand, even Google didn't define it correctly. I Googled it many times going, oh, they don't define it correctly. Active listening is the word active. You have to do something. Active is an action word. So you have to do something. Listening, just recepting, which is the middle bit, is part of the work, but active listening is where your ability to understand and try to expand on the understanding by asking questions. So you're actually kind of like forming a picture around what you're hearing so that it creates a story in your head in order for you to fully understand exactly what your client or the person in front of you trying to convey to you. And it's very involved, a lot of thinking. In a sales environment, if you're very good at doing that, if the client's saying something and you're responding on the last sentence and participate in with him or her in the conversation that syncs in a flow manner, then that is what active listening is. And that is what is core in the training that we do in Awake by 5 a.m. is to actually help the client, or my client anyway, to understand how do they ask those questions in such a way that the client will be more willing to share in a kind of like correct manner so that you can collect the right information at the right time, which will be very useful down the path of the sales call at the end.
Yes, I think that's the greatest gift you can give to your client, the gift of being listened to. I think that's what most people need. The gift of being heard and listened to. That's so important. And thanks for
Yes.
clarifying that, KJ. So let's say hi to some of the audience before we continue. There are some people who just joined us as well. So we have Jacqueline from Singapore. And this LinkedIn user is Andreas.
I'm here.
But we
And
can't
Andrea?
see him. So,
Okay.
so we have a question
Andrea.
again from Malaysia and
Yep.
Kuala Lumpur.
Awesome.
So from Vines, who is a consultant. So Vines says, so this one is quite an interesting question. So Vines says, how do you sell when the buyer doesn't see the value in your service or product?
That's a big question. There's so many ways I can answer that. Is it like the question is always going to be, I'm going to answer your questions instead. How do you sell when a buyer? Okay. Is it because you missed your sales call? Your questioning style is not that good, and then the client doesn't really see what you're saying. You're making an assumption your sales skill is great, but unfortunately, because it is poor, the client actually doesn't see it. Well, that's one question I would like to ask if it is a sales rep that asked me that question. And secondly, you know what? Did you speak to the right customer in the first place? Like, you could be actually getting the wrong target market. If you're trying to sell everything under the skies and things like that, not everyone wants an iPhone, not everyone wants an Android. Everyone have very specific requirements based on the order of priorities, right? So you need to understand that. Like, if the buyer doesn't see value of your service and product now, is it just now that they don't see, or is it in the future they may? So unless you actually understand this whole scope of, like the customer's decision process and all those things as part of the conversation that you have in your sales call, it's very hard to answer a very simple question like that, even though it looks simple, but it's actually very complex.
Yes, it can be a lot of things. Selling to the wrong people, it can be a sales process problem. It can be a
Sales
number of
skill,
problems, but
everything. Yeah, absolutely.
we'll love to hear your follow up, or if you have further question, Venus. If you have even more clarification on the question, we'd love to hear from you as well. Because for now, we are just guessing how we can help you here.
Mm.
Okay, so I think let's say hi to some more people before we move on to the next question. We have more people from Singapore. So Rayson Chu from
Well,
Singapore.
Singapore.
Rayson has a good podcast called The Legacy Show. And Jim Bond, he is Singaporean. So we not only have Singaporean in Malaysia, we have Singaporean based in Malaysia somehow.
Wow,
So very
amazing.
interesting. And
Cool. Yeah.
KJ is Malaysian, migrated to Australia. So we have a lot of Malaysian connection on the show right here. So
Yes.
moving on to the next question, which is also from Malaysia. So Noraida Yakob asks, what is the first step in approaching a client?
Okay. Well, it depends what business it is, isn't it? So um, it really depends on how the prospect come to us and which industry you come in, because they're all slightly different. Okay. But in terms of trying to answer your question, this is where the align system, I call it align, is ALIIGN. Okay. If you can remember that, great. If you can't, if you want to remember it, and just email me or DM me on LinkedIn. So I always believe that if you get the sequence right, it usually roughly a good quality sales call. So the first step is always about acknowledging your client. Is A. Okay. You need to understand where it come from. And if you know that how they come, how they actually come to you or how you go to them, understand that, then it gives you a good baseline to use when you do introduce yourself, right? But before that, between that, there's something called the L bit, which is lay the plan. You need to plan, especially when as a sales manager with my client, with my sales rep, when I go on the road with them, before we walk into the meeting, right? Every meeting, I'm talking about every meeting, I would ask my rep, okay, what is your plan? That's what I ask. And so as someone like solopreneur, if you're selling, you need to ask yourself, okay, what is the actual plan before you even talk to or engage with the client? So you got to have that. And then now you're talking about first step in approaching client. Well, if you have the first one, which is A, lay their plan down, which is the second one, then the next part is the fact that now you're in front of the client. So the first part where you sit down with the client or got your client on the phone, right? Whatever. So this is what the next step is. You got to introduce yourself. You have to have the courage to talk, to introduce who you are, who you work for, the normal stuff, right? But seriously, man, don't go overboard with the introduction. Like seriously, that those telemarketers, they just go on and on and on. No one wants to hear that crap. So be prepared, be confident in the introduction, and also like understand what is the agenda. So if you are talking about B2B sort of client, this is different, because B2B at this point in the introduction, you need to. I would suggest that even if you're B2C, you really want to set some form of an agenda while you're there, because if you can do that at the start before you even kind of do anything in a sales call, it gives the client understanding of going, okay, all right, these are the things that we're going to cover today, because you don't want to waste your client time. And it also gives you an opportunity that if the client know your company, right, but just doesn't know you, it also gives the client to kind of ask to put something on the agenda what you want to discuss as well. Just make sure you write that down. Don't forget that, so you can cover it later. And then the next step, of course, at those, and then from there you do the bulk of the sales call, which is the second I, which is investigation. Okay, so it's ALII, and then you got G and then M. So the second I is investigation. This is where you actually, there are many words for that. There's some people call it probing or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, active listening and consultative selling occurs in the I, which is the investigation bit. That is the core bit that you need to learn. And that is the core of my training with my client generally, to help them with that, how to ask questions and actually flow with that. All the principle and everything like that is mainly that bit. But in terms of first step, I hope that it gives you a bit of a flow so that you can actually work with, with the little amount of information that I just provided.
Yeah. So just to recap a bit, KJ. So AL stands for So
So
out of your
A is
acronym
acknowledge.
align, yeah,
Yeah. So A
acknowledge.
is acknowledge. So you need to know where they come from. L is lay a plan. So you need to have
Mhm.
a plan. And then I is introduction, a good, strong, confident introduction. And then the other I is investigation, whereby this is where you
Mm.
ask questions and do the real selling, like the real selling part. And then G is once you understand all the needs, is guiding the clients towards whatever solution that you might come up with. And
Mhm.
then N is never leave without an outcome. Always have an outcome at the end of every sales call.
Always have an outcome.
Yes,
Amazing,
whether
good
it is
one. Good.
a no is still an outcome, but you need to make sure you have an outcome.
Good one, good one, good one, KJ. I'm so happy to hear I does not stand for interrogate because that's what some people do as well.
Don't do it like an FBI. You're not an FBI agent. No one likes to have a spotlight in their face while you're actually trying to understand their needs and challenges. Um, it's a conversation. During the investigation bit is a conversation. And the
Mm,
most skillful sales rep, like the whole align is just a framework to help my client, but at the end of
mm,
the day it kind of like bleeds into each other. As you gain more and more experience, it kind of like all merge into one, and it becomes a conversation with your client. And no,
mm,
as I say in one of the things I always talk about to my client, a great sales call does not sound like a sales call. It never does.
mm, mm. Good stuff. Yeah, it does not sell on. It sounds like a sales call, and I think we have clarification from Vines. He actually clarified his questions on
Cool.
selling to people who might not need the service. So let's look at Vinay's comment. So Vinay is clarifying, and he said, first, it's how to sell when the potential client. So it almost covers our face, right?
Costs.
The
Yeah.
comments, yeah. So we have to stand higher. So how to sell when the potential client is more concerned about the cost rather than value. So it's very specific, KJ. Do you offer a
Price. Yep.
discount as a compromise to win the sale? Secondly, what happens if the client doesn't know what he doesn't know and your pitch hits that spot? I think
Okay,
what
the
he means
second
is
one is a
what
lot
the
harder
client
to
doesn't know what
understand.
she
Yeah.
needs. What the client doesn't know. So I'll leave this here, KJ, just for your
Okay.
reference, since you can see it,
Yes.
and then you can
Yes.
let's answer his first question first.
Okay. Let's do the first one. Okay. I'll do my best. Okay. So when it comes to cost, like in my experience, in some of the kind of companies I work for, some products, right, is made of plastic. It's a consumable. So very often that it is a bit of a commodity. And often it is a price war, right? A price war means that everything is just cost to them, and it gets to a point. It gets to a point where it's kind of like reaching the bottom, a race to the bottom, and it's not a very good scenario to be in when you're selling a product that is a huge commodity. There's no differentiation, and the customer knows it, and there are a lot of competitors at the same time. So I fully understand the first scenario. However, in the company that I work for, we grew the consumable massively. We doubled the pipette tip sale, or triple, yeah, triple, even though it is a commodity. And people start asking why. Why are we able to grow that in an extremely tight and competitive market? Well, the secret is we are doing a lot more than selling the tip, right? A pipette tip, like it's a consumable. We are actually providing like add-on stuff. Like we converse with the client about what else do you need? Well, what else makes it easier for you to buy from us? Take it away from the cost discussion if you can, and really start to add value beyond what you are actually the actual product itself. Because very often the client can get the same product from somewhere else, but however, they'll go with someone or a company that actually serve a lot more, give them better service. Not just being nice. I'm talking about like how fast you can deliver. What is the payment terms, other arrangement, and also like the technical level as well. Sometimes the product might be simple, but because you are so good with your product, they actually trust you and they just buy from you. The experience I have with that is my last job as a sales manager in the forensic world. The product that I sold was 30% more expensive than the nearest competitor, but I won 100% of all the sales in Australia for forensic product. And people ask me how I did that. Well, it's because of the speed of response. I'm very fast, right? And even though forensic wasn't really my main area, but I study the product inside out. I play with the tools. When I converse with the client, seriously, the client is like it's as if I'm actually using the forensic tool for my client actually to solve crimes. They ask me questions about how to solve some of the crimes in terms of what tools to use for certain scenarios. So I became a massive resources for them. And when the tender came, I knew the customer inside out in terms of what they plan to do for the next 5 to 10 years, and our product was still 35% under tender, still 35% more expensive than the nearest competitor, and we still won. It's worth more than $1 million plus, and that is just based on pure relationship and fully understand what a client wants that goes beyond the tender. The way I answer my tender, the information in there, it's the 4 years of understanding of my client. That's how I won that tender. And I write stuff in there that goes beyond the tender because they didn't want to ask too many questions in the tender anyway in the first place. But I knew what they needed that goes beyond the tender. And that is how you sell. So I took it away from the cost and it became just pure value.
Great stuff,
Okay.
KJ, and an amazing story. So going beyond the cost and really establishing the value. So thanks so much for that. So the second question, what happens if the client doesn't know that they need your service?
What happens if the client doesn't know what or she knows what and your pitch
Yeah.
service hit that
Basically, he
spot?
means what happens if the client doesn't know that they need your service?
Well, look, at the end of the day, that is a very bad question. I'm going to be honest here. I'm going to be blunt. When a customer
Yeah.
doesn't know your service and things like that, well, you know what? It's probably that's not important. The question always have to be, do you know what your client requirements are? You should
Mm.
ask that question instead. Don't be so fixated that your client have to know you, because most client doesn't want to know you. Most client doesn't give a damn about you. You need to spend most of your energy in knowing the client instead. Spend time there and then really understand whether your product or your solution that you provide will solve the problems that your client have. Like, you should focus
Mm.
on the front bit. Don't worry about the back bit. At the end of the day, if you don't know the front bit, forget about the back bit. The client doesn't care about you. That's the reality of it.
Yes, the client, you need to know what the challenges or what are the needs of the client. So it doesn't matter if your solution is right for them. You could even help the client in other ways. So it only matters what the client needs, not about whether the client knows you. So very good answer, KJ. So thanks for being with us, KJ. And before we move on to the last few questions, we almost hit an hour here. And thanks all of you who are here from Malaysia, Singapore. We have even Alan Tay all the way from Singapore. So we have so many people here. And
Singaporeans.
last one, before we go and before we answer the last few questions, all of you here who are watching this live, and all of you here, I don't want to neglect you, all of you that are watching this on replay. So there'll be people watching this on replay as well in the coming months or weeks. I get this all the time. Like, someone will comment on this live on Sunday or something. So all of you watching this on replay, what I want you to do is to connect with KJ Wong on LinkedIn. You can actually find him on the captions, and you can actually connect with him or just search for KJ Wong and you can find him on LinkedIn. And if you have any more questions that he did not answer in this live, just reach out to him. I think he will be happy to help you as well. And comment your questions below. We're ending this very soon, but we do have a few last questions coming in. But I think there needs to be some clarification. But I think there's one very specific one, but I think it's quite a hard question. He said, how do you solve after sales of your company affecting your product sales? Which is a very interesting question. Not sure,
What does that
KJ,
mean?
you know what he
How
means? Yeah, it's quite...
I don't really understand what that question means.
Mm,
The after sales, there's always a big principle that if you understand this, it will solve a lot of companies' problems when it comes to
mm,
selling. Okay, the I've been told this and I've practiced it. It is not the sale that is the most important. It's the period between the sale that is most important, which is the after sale, right? And the reason for
mm,
that is like the period between the sale is what makes the client come back to buy the second time. And in an organization, a seller, if you have a big company, you have to make sure that all the other departments, which is like logistics, customer service, technical engineering, anything that is supporting sales, they are or marketing, they all need to kind of like ensure that the customer's experience and journey is as good as the point where you actually, as a salesperson, trying to sell the client. If you do that well, the in between sales, which is the after sale, then there is a very likelihood that the client will come back. That is what called repeat customer, like repeat sales is, right? Same customer,
mm,
especially when it comes to the world of consumables. Why does company lose customers? Well, it's because they drop the ball along the chain. And very often there's always argument between the sales team versus the other departments for whatever reason it is because there are many things that happens between the sales and your product might be in a machine that breaks down, and if your engineer doesn't care, well, you know what, when the client wants a new machine to replace his machine, they'll never come back to you because your service suck. And so that's why the after sales is extremely
mm,
important. And I remember when I was a sales rep, i I hassle the engineer like they hate. There's a love-hate relationship between my engineer and myself. They know I love my customers, and they know I'm on them 24/7 to make sure those things are fixed. And they know that the fact that I do that is because we make a lot of money. And when the customer want another one, they also know that they're gonna buy from us. Anyone that
mm,
that support my sales knows this, even though they get annoyed with me. That is
mm,
the most important part. The after sales is more important than the sale itself.
mm. And as a salesperson, as you said, KJ, you are the problem solver. So you do anything, do anything in your power that you can help with the help to keep the clients happy. Because especially when it comes to B2B sales, and I like to say this, but
Yeah.
especially to B2B sales, it's a relationship. It's not a car salesman, one time deal and off you go. But it's something that you do years and years of on this time. And thanks all for
Yes.
joining. I think Jim actually resonated with. So Jim, thanks for your question. So Jim said, "Yep, internal cooperation is very important and parts and play an important part." I think is what you said. So thanks all
Yes.
for joining. We will end this broadcast soon. So thanks KJ for your time. Let me bring up some of the. Thank you so much for all of you who are here. Nikki says love the session, learning so much
Thank
and
you.
addressing the questions. And Vines, thanks so much for your question. Vines says good and candid stuff, KJ. And
I just, I
Jesse,
just,
we let. Sorry, you're saying something, KJ?
Bob, I just want to let your audience know that sales technique is just one component of selling. There are sales
Mm,
process, there's the CRM, there's sales system, there's hiring, and sales are so big, especially if you are a company. And what makes a difference in any organization is to get all those things right, not just the fact that you're in front of the customer. That is just a very small bit. Sales call and sales technique is only a very small bit of sales
yeah.
success. I just want to make sure your audience knows that.
Yep. To learn more about that, follow and connect with KJ Wong on LinkedIn. He shares a lot about that. I consume his content a lot. He has this videos of Melbourne City, sharing me, making me miss the city, going around the streets that I used to go. And yeah, it's very lovely videos, and you can really enjoy to see some of the panoramic views of the city while learning a lot about sales. So please connect with KJ Wong after this. And thanks all for being here. Jesse will let's say this is amazing. Good good one. And he said, I'm not sure, do you know him, KJ? He said he's been a fan for a long time. So
Oh wow,
I'm
thank
not
you.
sure.
Like there
Yeah.
are a lot of people who watch my content, but they don't talk to me or engage with me. So some names I recognize, and some names. Look, at the end of the day, don't be shy. I'm a very friendly guy, as you can see. I'm very relaxed, and contact me anytime you want.
Okay. Okay, so last few minutes, last few seconds. Thanks, Alan. And yeah, please say hi and connect with KJ after this. If you have not connected with KJ, just connect with me and say, "Hey, KJ, loved your live on LinkedIn. Thanks for sharing on LinkedIn Live." And I hope more people will connect with you and say hi to you as well. So you're welcome, Irene Chin. Thanks for watching. Thanks as well, Jack, for your questions. So Jack says, thanks for info and help a lot. Sherlyn Leong from Malaysia, and she said, great sharing, KJ and Bob. So you're welcome, Shireen. And last one, Jim Bond. We always end with Bond. So Jim Bond says, thanks for sharing. So you're
Awesome.
welcome, Jim.
Thank you for the
Okay,
opportunity,
so
Bob.
thanks so much,
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank
KJ.
you. Thank you for your time.
And thanks for being here. So last word again, let me repeat, connect with KJ Wong and follow his content on LinkedIn. So thank you, everyone. Have a good day ahead of you. Thank you.